After 40, something quiet begins to happen in the minds of many people, not to their ability, not to their intelligence, not to their potential, but to their identity. They begin to live more from who they were than who they can still become. They start to introduce themselves to life using their history instead of their vision. And slowly, without realizing it, they trade growth for memory. That is where wealth quietly stops for most. They say things like, "This is just how I am now," or "This is my personality," or "At this age, you can't really change much." These statements sound harmless, but they are financial death sentences spoken softly, because the moment you let your past define your future, progress slows to a crawl. The world does not care how long you've been on the road. It only rewards forward motion. Experience is valuable, but only when it fuels execution. Too many people over 40 replace effort with stories. They remember what they used to do. They remember what they once attempted. They remember what almost worked, but memory does not multiply income. Action does. And yesterday's effort does not pay today's bills. They mistake familiarity for mastery. Just because you've been doing something a long time does not mean you've been doing it well. Repetition without improvement is not growth, it is stagnation. Yet many people cling to the dignity of tenure while quietly avoiding the discomfort of reinvention. And reinvention is the price of relevance. The marketplace does not reward age, it rewards value. The calendar does not increase income. Skill does, adaptation does, discipline does. But the longer some people live, the more they defend who they used to be instead of upgrading who they must become. And what once felt like confidence slowly turns into limitation wearing the mask of wisdom. After 40, comfort becomes dangerously convincing. You've survived enough to know how to stay safe. You've been hurt enough to avoid risk. You've been tired enough to crave ease. And without realizing it, you begin protecting comfort more fiercely than your future. You choose predictability over possibility. And the cost of that choice shows up quietly in finances first. Wealth does not come from what feels safe. It comes from improvement, from learning again, from risking again, from being awkward again, from starting again when pride says you shouldn't have to. Pride after 40 is one of the most expensive luxuries a person can afford. Many people believe they are being realistic when they stop chasing bigger outcomes. But realism often means I'm willing to settle. And the problem with settling is that it feels responsible in the beginning and unbearable at the end. They also begin to trust their opinions more than their results. They become certain without becoming wealthy, certain without becoming disciplined, certain without becoming effective. Confidence without progress is one of the most dangerous traps after 40 because it feels mature while keeping you stuck. The wealthy continue to question themselves. The stuck defend themselves. The wealthy still ask, "What am I missing?" The stuck say, "This is just how it works." The wealthy evolve their thinking as the world evolves. The stuck demand the world slow down to match their comfort. Time after 40 is not your enemy, it is your amplifier. What you continue to do, you become more of. If you procrastinate, you become better at delaying. If you avoid learning, you become better at resisting growth. If you protect comfort, you become professionally fragile. But if you build skills, you become dangerous in the marketplace. If you refine discipline, you become unstoppable. The same time that weakens some strengthens others. The years don't make you less capable, they make you more revealed. Whatever you've been practicing quietly becomes visible after 40. The results stop hiding behind excuses. Wealth after 40 does not require youth. It requires hunger. It requires humility. It requires the courage to look at your life and say, "This still isn't good enough for what I want." And many people never say that sentence again once they cross this age line. They lower expectations and call it peace. They reduce ambition and call it balance. But inside, there is often a quiet discomfort, the feeling that they settled too soon. And that discomfort grows louder as the years pass. The tragedy is not that building wealth becomes impossible. The tragedy is that many people stop believing it is necessary. They stop believing they owe their future anything better than their present. And belief always comes before behavior. You don't stop building because you're too old. You stop building because you stop expecting more from yourself. And expectation is the engine of discipline. Wealth is not built by age. It is built by standards, by what you demand of your habits, by what you tolerate in your routine, by what you allow in your thinking. And the most expensive thought a person can ever have after 40 is this: it's too late. It is not too late to learn. It is not too late to build. It is not too late to change direction. It is only too late to pretend time no longer matters. The world does not slow down for comfort. It speeds up for value. And those who continue to upgrade themselves after 40 often pass those who stopped trying at 30. Your past explains you. It does not have to imprison you. Your age describes where you are in time. It does not dictate where you are allowed to go financially. And the truth is simple, even if it is uncomfortable. The rich at 50 are rarely more talented than the broke at 50. They are simply more disciplined, more adaptable, more willing to become beginners again, more willing to let go of outdated identities. Wealth does not respond to who you were, it responds to who you are becoming starting now. After 40, many people have one thing in abundance: experience. Years of work, years of effort, years of trial and error, and yet, despite all of that, their financial life often remains unchanged. Not because they didn't try, but because at some point, they began confusing experience with execution. They started to believe that knowing becomes the same as doing, and knowing without action never builds wealth. Experience can be a gift or a trap. When used correctly, it sharpens judgment. It helps you avoid obvious mistakes. It improves timing, but when misused, it becomes an excuse to stop moving. People say, "I've seen this before," as if seeing something replaces the need to act on it now. Familiarity becomes a substitute for courage. They attend conversations instead of opportunities. They analyze instead of build. They advise instead of execute. They correct others while avoiding their own reinvention. And slowly, experience stops serving growth and starts protecting ego. The wealthy never allow experience to become a resting place. They use it as a launching pad. They respect what they've learned, but they do not worship it. They understand that the market does not pay for memory, it pays for momentum. What you did 10 years ago may give you confidence, but it does not guarantee relevance. Execution is uncomfortable. It exposes weakness. It reveals gaps. It risks embarrassment. Experience, on the other hand, feels safe. It allows you to speak with authority without being tested, but wealth does not reward commentary. It rewards contribution. Many people after 40 know exactly what should be done. They know how a business should run. They know how success should be structured. They know how a strong work ethic should look. But knowledge without consistent action is just mental storage. And storage does not generate income. They waiting for the right time because they feel too wise to rush. But what they often call wisdom is actually fear wearing a respectable disguise. Fear of starting over. Fear of being slow at something new. Fear of looking inexperienced in front of people who once admired their confidence. So they stay stuck inside what they already know. They polish what is familiar instead of stepping into what is possible. And the cost of avoiding beginners' steps after 40 is often permanent financial stagnation. The wealthy accept something humbling and powerful. Execution makes you look foolish before it makes you look successful. They accept slow starts. They accept small results. They accept awkward progress because they understand that dignity does not pay dividends. Discipline does. Experience will tell you what might go wrong. Execution will show you what can go right. Experience predicts storms. Execution learns how to sail through them. Too many people stay on shore with good stories, while the disciplined cross the waters with imperfect skills and growing confidence. People say, "I already know that," but the question is never what you know. The question is what you do consistently, because consistency is what converts information into income. After 40, many people also become selective with their effort, but not in a productive way. They decide they will only act when conditions feel perfect, but perfect conditions never arrive. Momentum is only built by movement, not by permission. The wealthy build while unsure. They move while learning. They adjust while imperfect. They understand that clarity is sharpened through action, not before it. Most people reverse that order and wait for clarity that only movement can provide. Wealth favors those who are willing to look unpolished for a season. It avoids those who demand control before courage. There is also a quiet resistance to accountability that grows after 40. People are less willing to be coached, less willing to be corrected, less willing to admit what they don't know. And without that humility, execution slows dramatically. Pride builds walls that opportunity cannot climb. The wealthy remain students for life. They don't confuse age with arrival. They don't confuse tenure with transformation. They don't confuse survival with success. They submit themselves to new systems, new ideas, and new standards even when the ego resists. Execution after 40 requires a different kind of strength, not physical strength, internal strength. The strength to let go of reputation. The strength to be told you need improvement. The strength to build slowly in a world that celebrates quick wins. Many people would rather protect yesterday's image than build tomorrow's income. And that choice feels harmless until the years pass and the gap becomes permanent. Experience teaches what could work. Execution proves what does work, and only one of those pays. The world does not reward wisdom when it sits still. It rewards results. Results come from repetition. Repetition comes from humility, and humility is often the missing ingredient after 40. You do not get rich by knowing how money works. You get rich by repeatedly doing what works with discipline, even when it's boring, even when it's slow, even when no one is clapping. Execution is not glamorous, it is quiet, it is repetitive, it is often lonely, but it compounds, and while many people grow older collecting years, the wealthy grow wealthier collecting repetitions. You don't fall behind financially after 40 because you lack experience. You fall behind because at some point you stop translating experience into consistent execution. And the solution is not to learn more. It is to finally do more with what you already know. After 40, comfort becomes very convincing. It disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers that you've earned the right to relax, the right to slow down, the right to stop pushing so hard. And while rest is necessary, comfort quietly becomes a cage when it replaces growth. Most people don't lose their financial future to failure after 40. They lose it to ease. They begin organizing life around avoiding discomfort instead of pursuing improvement. They choose predictable routines instead of stretching goals. They protect what feels familiar instead of building what feels uncertain. And without realizing it, they trade short-term comfort for long-term limitation. Comfort does not announce itself as danger. It presents itself as reward. You've worked hard. It says, you've struggled enough. You deserve to take it easy. And those words sound true. But what they often steal is the hunger that once created progress. Wealth requires pressure. Pressure to learn, pressure to adapt, pressure to execute, pressure to remain sharp. Comfort releases that pressure, slowly, quietly, without argument, and when pressure leaves, performance soon follows. After 40, discomfort feels heavier because the stakes feel higher. You have reputation to protect. You have family watching. You have fewer emotional reserves for failure. So instead of risking embarrassment, you avoid reinvention. Instead of risking mistakes, you protect your image. Instead of risking loss, you settle for survival. But survival never builds wealth. It only maintains what already exists, and maintenance does not move you forward in a world that is constantly accelerating. Most people don't fail because they can't succeed. They fail because succeeding now requires becoming uncomfortable again. And starting over at any level of life challenges the ego more than it challenges ability. It exposes you to being slow again, to making mistakes again, to asking questions again, to needing help again. Comfort protects the ego far more than it protects the future. And the ego is always willing to sacrifice tomorrow for today's dignity. After 40, people also begin to measure risk differently. They no longer fear missing opportunity as much as they fear losing stability. But stability without growth is just a slow financial decline disguised as safety. Inflation doesn't respect comfort. The marketplace doesn't reward stagnation. And time doesn't pause because you feel settled. Comfort makes people selective about pain, but not selective about progress. They avoid the pain of starting, but accept the pain of staying stuck. They avoid the pain of discipline, but accept the pain of regret. They avoid the pain of effort, but accept the pain of limitation. And regret is always heavier than effort. The wealthy understand something that most people avoid. Discomfort is temporary, but comfort can become permanent limitation. The awkward season passes, the slow season strengthens, the learning curve flattens, but the person who never enters discomfort never reaches the next level of potential. After 40, comfort also shows up as justification. I've already done enough. I've already proven myself. I don't need to chase anymore. Those statements are emotionally soothing, but financially destructive, because wealth never responds to what you've already done. It responds to what you are still willing to do. Many people confuse peace with stagnation. True peace comes from alignment with purpose, not from abandoning it. The calm that comes from giving up is not peace. It is resignation wearing a soft disguise. The wealthy keep one thing alive long after most people let it die: personal demand. They still expect growth from themselves. They still require discipline from their habits. They still insist on improvement from their routine. And that internal demand keeps them in motion, while others slowly drift into financial stillness. Comfort weakens urgency, and urgency is the engine of change. Without urgency, days soften. Discipline relaxes, focus dulls, the need to stretch disappears, and when that happens, income soon follows the same downward curve. After 40, many people also negotiate with their goals more aggressively. They shrink expectations so disappointment hurts less. They aim lower so effort feels easier. They trade ambition for balance without realizing they stripped balance of its foundation, progress. Balance without progress becomes stagnation. The uncomfortable truth is this: most people don't protect comfort because they love ease, they protect it because they fear failure more than they desire growth. And fear always demands protection. Growth always demands risk. The wealthy do not become fearless. They become willing to feel awkward, willing to feel slow, willing to feel uncertain, willing to look inexperienced, willing to endure temporary discomfort in exchange for permanent strength. and that willingness keeps them economically dangerous in a world that grows complacent. Comfort also changes how people choose their environment. They surround themselves with others who reinforce ease instead of challenge. Conversations become softer, expectations lower, accountability fades, and without challenge, growth suffocates. The wealthy seek friction. They place themselves around standards that feel heavy at first, people who force improvement. Environments that demand precision, expectations that stretch them beyond comfort. They do not mistake pressure for punishment. They recognize it as preparation. Most people believe they stop building wealth because opportunity dries up. In truth, they stop building because hunger dries up, and hunger only disappears when comfort becomes the new priority. You don't stop because you can't grow. You stop because growing starts to feel too uncomfortable again. After 40, comfort feels justified, but justification does not change outcome. Most people after 40 begin protecting their certainty instead of challenging it. They replace curiosity with conclusions. They stop asking, "What's next?" and start saying, "That's just how it is." And the moment those words become routine, growth quietly dies. You cannot build new wealth with old thinking. You cannot solve modern problems with outdated mental tools. You cannot compete in a changing world using a fixed identity. Learning is the bridge between what you are and what the future requires. Many people say they are too busy to learn, but what they really mean is that learning has dropped down the priority list. Entertainment is scheduled, comfort is protected, distraction is welcomed, growth is delayed, and delay always shows up later as financial pressure. The wealthy treat learning like nutrition. It is not optional, it is daily, it is intentional. It feeds the system that produces income, decision, making, leadership, and opportunity. They do not binge information. They build understanding slowly and consistently. After 40, some people also develop a dangerous confidence in their opinions. They confuse strong beliefs with strong results. They debate ideas more than they test them. They defend positions more than they refine skills. And understanding is slowly replaced by argument. The wealthy don't argue with results. They adapt to them. If something works, they learn it. If something fails, they study why. They don't cling to being right. They cling to becoming effective because wealth responds to effectiveness, not conviction. Learning also forces confrontation with limitation. It reveals gaps in knowledge. It exposes weaknesses in skill. It uncovers where effort has been replaced by routine. That exposure feels uncomfortable, but discomfort is the only doorway improvement ever enters through. Many people avoid learning because it reminds them they are not finished, and unfinished feels threatening after 40. But the alternative is far worse: to decide you are finished when life has not finished testing you. The wealthy remain elastic. They stretch with change instead of resisting it. They absorb new tools, new ideas, new systems without becoming bitter about the world moving on. They recognize that evolution is not an insult. It is an invitation. Those who stop learning begin to shrink inside fixed routines. Their confidence hardens. Their flexibility fades. Their curiosity weakens. And slowly, opportunity stops knocking, not because opportunity disappeared, but because growth stopped answering. Another quiet danger is when people replace learning with complaining. They criticize younger generations instead of studying what they're doing differently. They mock new trends instead of understanding them. They protect tradition instead of mastering transition. And wealth is always found in transition. The wealthy don't resent what is new. They investigate it. They don't fight progress. They harvest it. They don't complain about change. They position themselves inside it. Because resistance never creates leverage, learning does. Many people believe wealth after 40 requires a lucky break. In reality, it requires a learning commitment. Breaks favor prepared minds. Opportunity searches for flexible thinkers. Momentum moves toward those who evolve. Learning also reignites hunger. It reminds you there is more to become, more to build, more to master, and hunger is one of the strongest fuels for wealth creation. When hunger fades, effort fades with it. The wealthy remain hungry, not desperate, driven. They hunger for competence. They hunger for mastery. They hunger for relevance, and that hunger keeps them moving while others quietly drift into financial stillness. Learning also restores hope. When you learn something new, you feel possibility again. When you gain new skill, you gain new leverage. When you expand your thinking, you expand your future. Hopelessness is often nothing more than stagnation disguised as fate. After 40, many people believe the door to major change has closed. Learning reopens that door quietly. It creates options where there were none. It reveals paths that were invisible before. It restores movement to lives that had settled into routine. Wealth does not belong to the young. It belongs to the adaptable. It belongs to the persistent learner. It belongs to the one who refuses to fossilize their thinking just because their age increased. You do not lose the ability to learn after 40. You lose the willingness, and willingness is always a choice. The world will continue changing with or without your permission. The only question is whether you will change with it or be left negotiating with memory. The wealthy choose to change. Most people choose to stay familiar, and familiarity never built a fortune. After 40, one belief quietly moves into the minds of many people. It does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself with fear. It arrives disguised as logic. The belief says, time is no longer on my side. And once that idea is accepted, behavior begins to shrink. Urgency turns into hesitation. Vision turns into caution. Possibility turns into permission, seeking, and wealth quietly moves out of reach, not because time ran out, but because belief collapsed. People begin counting what they think they've lost instead of what they still control. They measure years behind them instead of leverage in front of them. They trade momentum for memory, and slowly, without resistance, time becomes an excuse instead of a tool. But time does not work against anyone. It only amplifies direction. If your direction is forward, time becomes your greatest ally. If your direction is comfort, time quietly compounds stagnation. The years will always multiply whatever path you choose. They are loyal to momentum, not to hope. After 40, many people begin rushing mentally, but slowing behaviorally. They panic internally, but move cautiously externally. They feel pressure about age, yet avoid bold action because bold action now feels risky. And that contradiction creates paralysis. The fear of running out of time produces inaction instead of movement. The perception that time is against you creates desperate thinking, and desperate thinking produces poor decisions. People chase shortcuts instead of structure. They seek fast money instead of stable momentum. They jump without discipline and then use failure as proof that it's too late. In truth, it was never too late. It was simply too rushed without foundation. The wealthy use time very differently after 40. They stop betting on speed and begin mastering leverage. They trade the illusion of quick wins for the power of compounding habits. They understand that small, repeated improvements beat urgent, emotional decisions every time. They know that time favors consistency more than intensity. 1 hour a day invested with discipline will outperform 10 frantic hours fueled by panic. Wealth rarely arrives through frantic bursts. It arrives through calm, directed pressure applied again and again over years. After 40, many people also begin negotiating with effort because they think effort should decrease with age. They believe time entitles them to ease. But the marketplace does not pay based on entitlement. It pays based on value. And value is built through relevance, not age. Time does not retire your responsibility to grow. It only increases the urgency to grow correctly. The older you become, the more precision matters. Random effort becomes too expensive. Emotional decisions become too costly. Discipline becomes the only strategy that consistently pays. People who believe time is against them also begin shrinking their goals to avoid disappointment. They lower expectations so failure hurts less. They tell themselves they are being realistic when they are actually being defensive. And defense never builds wealth, only offense does. The wealthy do not fear time. They schedule it. They respect it. They structure around it. They stop wasting it on comparison, regret, and hesitation. They understand that time does not demand perfection. It demands direction. Every day after 40 still offers the same currency everyone receives, hours. The difference is not in supply, it is in deployment. The broke deploy hours into distraction. The wealthy deploy hours into leverage. Time also exposes whether you are building systems or relying on effort alone. Effort fades. Energy fluctuates. Motivation comes and goes, but systems compound regardless of mood. The wealthy become architects of systems because they understand that time multiplies what is structured. Many people confuse youth with advantage. Youth has energy, but time has insight. Youth has speed, but time has clarity. Youth can sprint, but time can build compounds that sprinting never could. After 40, time becomes a lens. It magnifies whatever foundation you are standing on. If your habits are weak, time will expose that weakness. If your discipline is strong, time will amplify that strength. Those who believe time is an enemy begin looking backward with regret. Those who believe time is an ally, I look forward with structure. Regret is passive, structure is productive. The wealthy reframe age as leverage. They trade impulse for strategy. They trade raw ambition for refined execution. They trade scattered effort for focused precision. They do not attempt to outwork younger competitors with energy. They outposition them with timing, patience, and long-term planning. Time also teaches emotional control. The wealthy stop reacting impulsively. They stop chasing every opportunity. They wait for alignment. They invest with patience. They build with foresight. And foresight is one of the greatest advantages time ever gives. People who believe time is running out often abandon patience. And without patience, compounding collapses. They uproot seeds too early. They switch strategies too quickly. They reset momentum before it has time to mature. The wealthy understand that growth often looks invisible before it looks inevitable. Time hides progress before it reveals it. And those who panic too early never remain in the game long enough to see results surface. After 40, time also becomes a mirror. It reflects whether you are moving intentionally or drifting emotionally. Drift feels slow but costs everything. Intention feels demanding but pays relentlessly. Most people don't fall behind because they are out of time. They fall behind because they stopped directing time. They allowed it to pass instead of putting it to work. And time only works for those who assign it a clear job. The idea that it's too late is one of the most expensive lies anyone can believe. It cancels effort before discipline even starts. It suffocates strategy before structure is built. It kills momentum before movement begins. The truth is uncomfortable. Many people have more time left than they are willing to admit, but less urgency than they should feel. They underestimate what 5 focused years can produce. They underestimate what 10 disciplined years can transform. Time will move either way. The only question is whether it will carry your progress or just your excuses. The wealthy treat time like capital. They invest it, they protect it, they grow it. They do not spend it emotionally. They do not waste it symbolically. They use it precisely, and over time, time rewards that precision. You do not lose the opportunity for wealth after 40. You only lose the illusion that it will come without structure. Time is not against you. It is waiting to multiply whatever you choose to give it.